welcome into Morning JOX here as we close out another week and get you set up for another fantastic Saturday of college football coming up tomorrow. So, of course, we've got Alabama and Auburn. They're both going to be in action this weekend and playing at the same time, as a matter of fact. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus, you will be able to watch Alabama as they host Eastern Illinois and Auburn as they host Mercer. And, of course, a lot of people are going to be having their eyeballs on that game, or those two games, thinking about next weekend and what's going to set up to be a fantastic Iron Bowl with major implications for both programs. And both programs trying to secure their postseason fate. For Auburn, that's a bowl game. For Alabama, that's a spot in Atlanta as well as in the college football playoff. So going to be a great day here on the show. Damian Mitchell out today, a little under the weather. He'll be back with us on Monday. So in his stead, we have the one and only Pat Smith with us here this morning. Pat, it's wonderful to have you be a part of the Damian Mitchell Show and Friends.
Well, I'm a frequent listener. This is the first time caller, but yeah, man, happy to jump on today. And it's a football Friday, and I know both teams, Alabama and Auburn, they've got these lackluster games tomorrow that you're going to probably get to see a lot of second, third, and fourth string guys get to play. But it's setting up for an incredible week next week.
Yes, no doubt about it there. And we'll dive in a little bit into some of the games this weekend coming up. And we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to see from both Alabama and Auburn. I know a lot of people excited as it was announced yesterday that Deuce Knight is expected to get the start tomorrow for the Auburn Tigers. So I look potentially into the future of the Auburn football program coming against Mercer tomorrow for the fans. But we've got time to dive into all of that because like you're saying, Pat, right, maybe not the most interesting matchups on the field this weekend in terms of, I think we both know Alabama and Auburn are going to be victorious. It's just a matter of how many points are they going to win by. So it's only fitting, right, that the drama, instead of being on the field, is going to be off the field a little bit with the coaching carousel that seems to suck up everything in its path here in the world of college football, Pat. So let's start off with the, I guess, the latest batch of rumblings in the college football coaching carousel, because we spent a lot of time on Auburn and their pursuit of John Sumrall, or perhaps a couple of other candidates that have been there at the top of the list for John Cohen. We've spent a lot of time with Lane Kiffin. We've got an update on Lane Kiffin coming up here shortly as well. But kind of the big rumblings yesterday, Pat, a little bit of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people, but based on conversations that you and I both were having last night with people in and around Tuscaloosa, it seems like maybe there's a little bit of legitimacy and maybe some optimism on the Penn State side of things with these rumblings. But it sounds like Kalen DeBoer is at the top of the leaderboard for Penn State and who they would like to replace James Franklin as their next head football coach.
You know, this is one of those slow drumbeat in the distant kind of thing that you've been hearing over the last couple weeks. And I'll be completely honest, I haven't put much relevancy to it in regards to the potential. But all of a sudden, you're getting multiple people in Happy Valley. And I'm talking about people that have covered the team for a very long time, respectable journalists, and they keep saying that Kalen DeBoer is the number one candidate for the Penn State job. Like you, I reached out to people in Tuscaloosa and said, why does this keep coming up? Is there some legitimacy there? I've talked to other journalists that know Kalen DeBoer pretty well, and they've had no indication whatsoever that Kalen DeBoer is unhappy or his family's unhappy in Tuscaloosa. Listen, we know that he took the job after the greatest college football coach in the history of the game, and he had an opportunity to say no to Greg Byrne a couple of years ago, but he took on that challenge. And yes, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be upset if Alabama does not win in Auburn next week and get a chance to get to the college football playoff. But for the people at Penn State to be overly confident, it's and to me, and just being able to cover a multitude of coaches changes not only in our state but around the SEC, that kind of tells me that they're getting their information from inside that Penn State athletic department. So somebody in that Penn State athletic department, they're the ones that's propagating this idea that Kalen DeBoer is the number one candidate, to the point to where they're going, okay, Penn State fans, I'm talking about the people that are doing the podcast, you need to be rooting for Auburn to beat Alabama because they believe that it's very similar to the James Franklin situation that if he were to lose to Auburn, then all of a sudden Penn State is going to be a great off ramp. Now, I know I asked Nick Kelly that question, I think on Monday. I've asked Mike Rodak that question, a couple weeks ago because once again it was a rumor in the hinterlands. It was something that a lot of us were like, okay, but that doesn't make sense. Why would he leave Tuscaloosa to go from the frying pan to the fire, be to a place where you just fired a coach for not winning big games? So it's just a bizarre story. I still don't put a lot of credence into it because there's a lot of what if scenarios for Penn State that they think that they would be in line to potentially give Kalen DeBoer an offer. But it is something worth talking about because as we've seen with Lane Kiffin, craziness is the definition of this year's college football season.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, because I'm with you, right? This is something that we had kind of been made aware of in the past few weeks, and it's okay. I'll file that one back away in the memory bank, and then as time has gone on, it kind of went away, right? Because Alabama, they're rolling, having all the success. You thought last weekend they got that win, they were going to punch a ticket to the CFP, and why would you leave a team if you're leading them to a conference title or potentially a conference title appearance and a college football playoff? But now, obviously, with Oklahoma, the first sign of a chink in the armor, and this is the kind of stuff that's going to happen. And I do want to reiterate, and tell me if you heard something different since we last talked, Pat. But from what I understand and what I think from the information you've gathered as well, this would all be contingent on Alabama losing the Iron Bowl and missing the college football playoff. This is not, like you were saying, this is not a Kalen DeBoer is not happy in Tuscaloosa. His family doesn't want to be there anymore. It's nothing along those lines. It's more Penn State people being optimistic or hopeful that a loss in the Iron Bowl would essentially lead Alabama to push Kalen DeBoer out the door and into the open arms of Penn State. Is that safe to say? That's my understanding of it all.
Yes, yes. No, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the scenario that I've heard multiple times from Penn State people. That he is definitely number one on the list of potential coaches that they would like to hire, but it's just like you and I driving through the nicest part of Birmingham and looking at a $5 million house. We would love the opportunity. That's our number one house that we want to live in, but that doesn't mean it's reality. And I think that's the same thing that's going on here with Kalen DeBoer. There's been no indication from the people that have literally spent a lot of time with Kalen DeBoer over the last couple of weeks, and that includes this week after a tough loss to Oklahoma. There's been no indication whatsoever that Kalen DeBoer is frustrated or unhappy or doesn't understand the task at hand. So all of this can change. We know how fickle these coaches can be at times depending on the situation. But from the blueprint that you just laid out, Conrad, that's exactly the way that I've heard it. There's a lot of things that would have to happen for Kalen DeBoer to potentially even consider that situation in Happy Valley. But for whatever reason, the people up there are very confident that they believe, not confident that they're going to get him, but they're confident that that situation could arise and present itself, and they would be able to put the best foot forward and give an offer potentially to Kalen DeBoer.
Well, as if we needed any more drama or any more incentive for next week behind the Iron Bowl, it's nice to have this kind of sprinkled on top of it for Alabama and for Auburn fans, right? Because now, if you're an Auburn fan, you're probably thinking, wow, so we could potentially not only ruin Alabama's season and keep them out of Atlanta and keep them out of the playoff, but we could also potentially send their head coach packing and going up to Happy Valley if we're able to pull off this upset. And then similarly for Alabama, maybe you feel like you essentially have everything to lose, not just the game coming up in Jordan-Hare Stadium on the plains of Auburn. So it's going to be a fantastic week next week. And again, if more information comes out, more rumblings happen, we will bring them to you right here on JOX. And this wasn't not trying to alarm anybody on a Friday morning and send up the siren that, things are going down in Tuscaloosa. But it had gotten to a point yesterday, Pat, where it felt like enough traction, I guess you could say, had gotten behind the conversation, and enough people around the Penn State program had decided to finally start discussing it openly, that it just felt like something we needed to tackle and put out in front of you the listener and make you aware of it, because at least now if something were to happen drastic in the future, you can look back and go, oh, yeah, okay, that was something that I was made aware of, and I didn't have the rug pulled out from under me. So going to be an interesting time for, I guess, Kalen DeBoer. Add him onto the list of some people that are going to have potentially decisions to make and have some drama coming up in their lives here soon.
Yes, and we want to play for you just an example of what Conrad and I were just talking about. Audrey Snyder, she has covered Penn State for many, many years. She's currently, you have to have a subscription to Substack. She used to work at The Athletic, covered Penn State. Before that, she covered Penn State for a multitude of newspapers there in Pennsylvania. She's a multi-time winner of the Pennsylvania Sports Writer of the Year award. So we're talking about someone that has got deep roots covering Penn State, someone that's legitimate, and she does a podcast. And I'll be honest, I don't listen to the podcast regularly, but obviously I kind of tuned in last night because, okay, I want to see what they're saying in regards to Kalen DeBoer and potentially leaving Alabama. This apparently is a topic, Conrad, that they have spent a lot of time talking about over the course of the last few weeks. But we're going to share a little snippet, and this is what Audrey Snyder, who, by the way, is going to be on Three Man Front today at noon. So we're going to give you a little bit more of an expanded opportunity to hear what Audrey has to say about Kalen DeBoer and potentially going to Penn State. That's at noon today. But here's a little snippet from her podcast last night talking about Kalen DeBoer and potential Penn State marriage.
Penn State, this is the, like, I'll say dream scenario where Bama, you want them to lose. Like, I think that's the Penn State fan rooting guide interest here. And again, it feels like we're probably a broken record here and repeating ourselves, but we saw it play out with James Franklin here. And it was the, oh my God, they can't get rid of him. It's never going to happen. That would be crazy. Crazy things happen in this sport all the time. And fan bases are rabid, and it is as passionate as it gets. It's like that here. It is certainly like that in Tuscaloosa. And if it gets to a level where it is really uncomfortable for Kalen DeBoer, just like it got with James Franklin here, then I think you see that opportunity open. And again, if they lose, then we're looking at a scenario where you're saying, all right, Penn State, like, this is, I think, how you make your move.
That was Audrey Snyder. She covers Penn State Inside the Lines podcast. That's what she said last night. And keep in mind, there are plenty of other people that are potentially up for the Penn State job, including Bob Chesney, who's the head coach at James Madison. They spent a good bit of time on the podcast last night discussing Brent Key. That's right, Hewitt-Trussell's own Brent Key, the current head football coach there in Atlanta for Georgia Tech, and also Eli Drinkwitz. So there's other names involved. This is not just, okay,
yeah,
here's the number one candidate that we're talking about. But based on the podcast I heard last night, Conrad, they're like going, okay, let us explain this again about Kalen DeBoer, because Kalen DeBoer apparently has been a hot topic on their podcast, not only hers, but also other podcasts covering Penn State.
Well, and if you're an Alabama fan that's hearing that and you're in the camp of wanting to keep Kalen DeBoer and still believing that he's going to get this thing figured out and lead Alabama to a playoff this year, I think what you're holding on to is the very first thing she said in that clip there, which is, this is the dream scenario for Penn State, right? It's not, this is happening, this is, very likely, this is the dream scenario for Penn State. So obviously still recognizing on her behalf that this is, would be a bit of a stretch, but again, as she said, crazy things happen in college football all the time. And we will see what happens, what the future is of Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, what Penn State does moving forward, and certainly a lot on the line next Saturday in Auburn for the Iron Bowl. This just makes that a little bit more interesting now. But the big fish, Pat, has been Lane Kiffin for quite some time now as far as the coaching search goes, and a potentially big update on Lane Kiffin and his future at Ole Miss is coming later today. We'll give you all the details next. You're listening to Morning JOX on a Friday. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Friday morning. Conrad Van Order and Pat Smith here with you until 7 o'clock. We'll hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They're with you from 7 to 10. Then Pat and I will be back from 10 to 2 alongside Landrum Roberts and Molly Robinson for some three-man front action. And then, of course, you got Paul taking you into your weekend here from 2 to 6. So no reason to turn that dial today here on JOX. So if you're just now joining us, Pat and I diving into some of the reports coming out yesterday about Penn State and Kalen DeBoer potentially being the leading candidate, I guess, at the top of their wish list, maybe is a better way to put it there, for Penn State in their coaching search. And basically the gist of it is all contingent on a loss to Auburn in the Iron Bowl and some turmoil caused by that could see Kalen DeBoer being pushed out the door and into Penn State's open arms. But nothing that we have heard, based on the people we talked to last night, Pat, indicates anything about Kalen DeBoer being unhappy in Tuscaloosa or anything like that. And we even played a clip of you from a Penn State podcast where they laid it out as the dream scenario for Penn State. Right. So that is essentially where we stand right now. And some of you chiming in on the courtesy GMC text line this morning with your thoughts. It is also Final Score Friday, so we would love to have your final score predictions if you want to text those in for the games coming up this weekend. But let's see. This text comes in. It says, so Penn State wants to replace James Franklin because he couldn't win the big game with a guy who's not been able to win the big game with the most talented roster in the country. It says, he also adds in, the fact that his daughter has not transferred to Alabama softball is telling.
That last portion is something I brought up on a podcast I did yesterday with SEC Mike, that SEC podcast. I said, to me, it doesn't make sense. Why would you're not getting a chance to see your all-world softball daughter play at the University of Washington, so let me go to the other side of the continent. I mean, I know it's tough getting from Tuscaloosa to Seattle, but going from Happy Valley, Pennsylvania to Seattle, he really wouldn't spend any time watching his daughter play softball if that were to happen. The one thing I will throw out there, and you mentioned it in the first segment, Conrad. If there was a scenario out there that Kalen DeBoer was potentially looking for an off-ramp, and we're not saying he is, but let's just play the game that he is after the Iron Bowl if Auburn wins. I would be more concerned if Lincoln Riley ends up in Baton Rouge or Gainesville, Florida, and USC trying to hire Kalen DeBoer. Why? Couple reasons. One, obvious, West Coast. He's a West Coast guy. Two, the current athletics director at USC is Jennifer Cohen. Guess where she came from? Washington.
Yep.
Guess who she hired at Washington? Kalen DeBoer. So if you're wanting to kind of connect some dots, and if you're an Alabama fan, you're worried about potentially down the road where Kalen DeBoer could go, potentially, air quotes, that would be the one I'd be more worried about than Happy Valley. And as of this moment, USC does not have a job opening, and I think Kalen DeBoer is happy in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an excellent point, Pat. Yeah, I think that, again, if we were talking about USC or Pitt or Oregon right now instead of Penn State,
different conversation.
Correct. I agree 100%. 100%.
Yep.
Let's see. Don chimes in on the courtesy GMC text line, says, interesting. So we could not only knock y'all out of the playoffs, but also make your coach leave. He also throws in his score predictions for this weekend. He says Auburn's going to beat Mercer 49-14 and Alabama's going to beat Eastern Illinois 49-7. So thank you, Don for
there might be some
playing along at home.
There might be some people upset if Alabama gives up 7 points to Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, maybe so. I wonder how Penn State people would feel about that. I'm sure they're rooting for Eastern Illinois tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's see. This text comes in. It says, talking about Kalen DeBoer, it says, if he loses the Iron Bowl and we miss a 12-team playoff for 2 years in a row, I hope he goes. Anywhere is fine. This guy just wants him out of town if he can't make the playoff 2 years in a row. I think there's a lot of people that would, at least initially, feel the exact same way.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday on Three Man Front, that if that Iron Bowl result means that he does not get in the college football playoff and he loses to a one-win Southeastern Conference team in the standings, that would be Auburn, then yeah, I mean, the pressure and the hot seat would be prevalent next year, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So y'all keep sending in your text. We have more flowing in right now at 205-834-9450, and we will get back to those here in a little bit. But do want to carry on with the coaching carousel conversation here for a few more minutes and getting away from Penn State and Kalen DeBoer and that whole hypothetical situation. Everyone's favorite guy, Pat, Lane Kiffin, there in Oxford. Some big news coming out, or potentially some big news coming out today or in the near future for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, as it was announced yesterday, Pat, that Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter, the athletics director at Ole Miss, are planning to have a meeting today. That was reported by Chris Lowe and On3 yesterday, and I think a lot of people are assuming that this is perhaps the meeting where Lane Kiffin will make an ultimate decision in terms of either reaffirming his commitment to Ole Miss and moving forward with that program, or perhaps this is the day we find out that he is entertaining the other job opportunities, and Ole Miss has said, hey, we appreciate everything you've done for us, Lane, but if you can't make up your mind, we're going to have to move forward, and we wish you the best of luck in the future. So what all can you add to that for us, Pat, in that big meeting potentially that's set up today with Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter?
Yeah, I reached out to a couple of people in Mississippi yesterday and last night, and they believe that meeting, as Chris Lowe reported on 3, that meeting is supposed to take place today. It is also interesting, about 1 hour ago, Lane Kiffin, he likes to tweet out pictures of, like, daily affirmations, or, it's his, okay, this is how I'm tackling the day, these type of motivational quotes and things like that. And this is what he posted at 5:14 a.m. this morning. I guess this was before he went to yoga. He says, how do you figure out what you really want? You imagine a life that would be too good to be true, and then you take note of the elements, the themes. Are you surrounded by others? Are you quiet? Are you hopeful or healing or resting? Are you adventuring? Are you in your wild? Are you creating? Are you more unique? The picture does not have to come fully into fruition for you to understand that its pieces are directing you to the most honest aspects of yourself. Make a map of that life and live it now. Live it here. That was it. No context. He posted that picture at 5:14 a.m. So if anybody speaks in Lane Kiffinisms, maybe you could text us and let us know what that exactly means. But
I feel like it could mean multiple. Like,
absolutely.
On one hand, I'm listening to it and I'm going, okay, that sounds to me maybe like a guy that's reflecting on all of the things that he currently has in his life and appreciating them. And so maybe that means he's leaning towards staying. But then at the end, it also sounds like, kind of the, hey, if you have an opportunity to go and do something, why not go and do it? Take that chance.
I mean, because it depends on what fan base you are, right? Because like there's one sentence that says, are you adventuring? Are you in your wild? In other words, if you're an LSU fan, you're like going, okay, he's saying that he's really not where he wants to be, which is Ole Miss. But then the last line is, make a map of your life and live it now. Live it here. Ole Miss fans are going, see, he just posted something that said, live your life here, like in Oxford. That's where he is now. So, yeah, he does this purposely, and he does it very well. He gives a lot of confusing messages.
He is the best at it. I think it was, I'm trying to remember exactly what it said, but I remember the one that he posted on Tuesday that really had some people up in arms. And like you said, man, he's a mastermind when it comes to this. I've said it many times. I think I said it yesterday on 3 Man Front. I love Lane Kiffin. I love the entertainment that he brings us here in the SEC. I am so thankful that he is not a head coach of a program that I root for, though, because it feels like it would really, really be stressful at times if you're trying to sit here and decipher all of these different messages and social media posts and things like that. But he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
So here's another thing. Like you're doing a deep dive on Lane Kiffin, which is dangerous. But if you're sitting here looking at it, if you see his Twitter or his X, and you see the picture, at the top of the picture, I don't know if you have it pulled up, Conrad. Can you pull it up real quick if you have it in front of your computer?
Just the top of Lane Kiffin's account?
Just go to his account and check out the 5:14, the quote that I just read, the picture. and I want you to tell the audience what it says on the top of the picture.
Let's see. Oh, are you talking about the how do you figure out what you really want? That part of it?
Yes, the very top. What does it say above that?
The
The
if you-
day. What does it say?
228.
Day 228. Okay. Day 228 on the calendar. Let's just assume that this is, a daily affirmation that starts on January the 1st, right?
Yes.
Day 228 would be August the 16th.
Okay.
So is he saving these quotes back when he comes across of them like in the summer, and then he's reposting them because there's not 228 days left in the year. This is not the 228th day of the year. Do you see my point?
No,
My
that's
point
a good
is
point.
like during the year he's like saving these different interesting quotes, and then he's posting them because today's not day 228 of the calendar.
We'll see. Okay, so if we want, I mean, if we're just really going down the rabbit hole here. So, okay, so the last one he posted was day 228. Then the day before, he posted one that was day 225. So now we're skipping days.
Yes.
And then before that, it goes back into order where it's 224, 220, and he's kind of posting them day by day, but
I know
Just-
it's a bad rabbit hole, and I know I just noticed that. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. If this is like a daily thing for him, like some people on their desk have, okay, today, this day in history, or this is the quote of the day.
Yeah.
And if this is your daily affirmation, or, go live your life based on this quote today, day 228 is in August. But anyway, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I just like to think that Lane Kiffin, is kept up at night tossing and turning in bed because he just can't decide, well, do I want to be Nick Saban or Steve Spurrier? Because we know that he has, acknowledged his love and admiration for both of those guys quite frequently. And so it's kind of funny that now that's ultimately a decision of, it's almost, do I want to be Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, or do I want to be Nick Saban? Do I want to be Steve Spurrier? And it's like he's having that internal battle with all of the different possibilities. So going to be interesting to see what happens there at Ole Miss today. If anything breaks, of course, during the day while we're on the air, we will bring it to you. So maybe, Pat, maybe they'll have a nice lunchtime meeting, and we'll get some nice 1 o'clock breaking news on three-man front. That sounds nice, right?
Oh, that would be fantastic.
That would be absolutely fantastic. So let's get to a little bit of what's going on this weekend as well. We'll take a quick look at some of the bigger matchups in college football coming up this weekend, and more of your texts, because a lot of you picking up some of our comments earlier about Kalen DeBoer and Penn State. A lot of people having some thoughts, and maybe some people not so upset at the potential of Alabama looking for a new football coach. So the college football conversation, it rolls along here on a Friday morning edition of Morning Jocks. Oh, 6:36 here on your Friday morning. Conrad Van Order, Pat Smith here with you on JOX. And we appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day here on JOX, your home for college football and much, much more around the sports world. So a busy morning already for us here, Pat, as we've spent the first half of the show talking coaching carousel and some interesting rumblings around Penn State and their, I guess, their hopeful leading candidate, which would be Kalen DeBoer if they had their way up there in Happy Valley, and potentially some clarity on the future of Lane Kiffin coming down the pipeline later this afternoon. So it's been an exciting morning here on the show. We love to get your engagement as well. 205-834-9450. It'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. And whether you want to talk Kalen DeBoer, Lane Kiffin, final score Friday predictions for tomorrow, we'd love to have you. And we will get back to your text here in just a moment. But let's take a look quickly at what we have to look forward to tomorrow. And, Pat, we're just going to run through kind of the slate of games we have coming up tomorrow. And just let me know if any of these stand out to you, anything that you think may be worth keeping an eye on outside of, obviously, Alabama and Auburn. They're both playing at 1 o'clock. Alabama and Eastern Illinois, Auburn and Mercer. We know how those games are going to go. So we do have at 11 a.m. another game that we know how the result's going to end up, but I know a lot of people probably going to be interested because Samford is traveling from right down the road here. They're going to College Station to take on Texas A&M, and I'm sure Bucky will be there, so that'll be a cool opportunity for a little Bucky reunion down in College Station. But you know, the reality is Samford parting ways with head coach Chris Hatcher. They're 1-10 on the season. Probably not going to be the most fun day for the Samford Bulldogs tomorrow, but it will be cool to see them taking on Texas A&M in College Station. Another game, though, that's at 11 a.m. in the SEC, and I think this one could potentially be interesting, is you actually have a ranked game now between number 22 Missouri and number 8 Oklahoma. So the game's going to take place in Norman, Oklahoma, and obviously the Sooners riding high off of that win over Alabama last weekend. They're now in the college football playoff top 12 as it currently stands. But this is also going to be the fourth straight game for Oklahoma against a ranked opponent, Pat. So do you think there's any chance of a slip-up tomorrow for the Sooners, or should it be pretty smooth sailing for them coming off the Alabama win?
I mean, if Missouri doesn't turn the ball over 3 times, I think it could be interesting. Vegas thinks it's going to be interesting because Oklahoma's only a 7-point favorite right now, or 6.5 over Mizzou. If Hardy gets running downhill, Mizzou takes care of the game in regards to no turnovers. They shorten the clock, take the air out of the game a little bit. I think it could be an interesting game in the second half. And you got to see how this Oklahoma team, how will they deal with success? All of a sudden them being in the college football playoff conversation. And it's a big game. And I think Eli Drinkowitz is going to put his team in a really good spot in regards to making this a very competitive game. So I'm like you, 11 o'clock in the morning, Norman, Oklahoma against Mizzou. Yeah, I like Mizzou in the points.
Yeah, that could be an interesting one nonetheless, and obviously a loss there would knock Oklahoma out of the playoff and maybe give Alabama a little more security, but certainly going to be interesting to see how Oklahoma handles success, like you said there, Pat. Moving on at 2:30, a big one. Man, this is like, what, the third big game in the Big Ten all season. I'm glad we finally got another one. USC and Oregon there in Eugene. So 15th-ranked USC taking on 7th-ranked Oregon. Oregon's getting 10.5 in this one. That's the point spread as it stands right now. And I don't know how you feel about Oregon at this point, Pat. Look, I think they have a lot of talent. And it's Oregon, so there's a part of me that's like, yeah, you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt at this point. But they haven't played anybody, and I just haven't been super impressed with them at all this year. 10.5 is a lot of points for me. How do you think this one might go down with Oregon and USC? Any potential upsets there? Because you have to imagine if Oregon loses again, they might be out of the playoff because they're not going to have any ranked wins on that resume.
Now, when I watch Oregon, it's like it's a disjointed version of Oregon's from years ago. You know, they do enough on this side of the ball. They look good one week on that side of the ball, but the next they don't. And I know that they played that ugly game at Iowa, you know, a couple weeks ago, but I think the weather had a lot to do with the way that game looked. But USC has got a top-tier offense on paper. And if you have that type of offense, and hopefully if you're Lincoln Riley, it can travel. I like this game inside the number. I think Oregon, for those that bet Oregon thinking that they're going to blow people out each and every week, I think you've been disappointed. And I think Lincoln Riley does have a good team this year. I'm not calling for the upset, but I do think that this is an intriguing game for Big Ten fans.
All right, also at 2:30, you have another SEC matchup, and this is one Alabama fans will likely have their eye on, and that's Kentucky and Vanderbilt. So if you see something here that I don't, Pat, please speak up. I'm not expecting Kentucky to pull off the upset. I think we all expect Vanderbilt to take care of business, but this is one of those games, right? If Kentucky does pull off the upset, that hurts Alabama in terms of their chances of making it to Atlanta. So if you're an Alabama fan, you want Vanderbilt to win this game because Vanderbilt winning this game and you winning the Iron Bowl essentially locks you into Atlanta. I know there's a couple other things that have to go on there, but this is a big one. If you're an Alabama fan, you want to see Vanderbilt win tomorrow.
Yes, Alabama fans need to be the biggest Missouri Tiger fans tomorrow, and they need to be the biggest Vanderbilt Commodore fans tomorrow, because you need as many data points as you can in that college football playoff room, as we saw Tuesday night. They're not a big fan of Alabama. Alabama's behind Notre Dame, so they need as many points as they can get in regards to the oppositions of who they have beaten. Mizzou would jump up in the college football playoff rankings, and Vanderbilt would hold steady, maybe go up a point or two in regards to next week's rankings. So that would help out Alabama's, obviously, the strength of schedule data point that we're told means something.
Yes, and also in terms of the tiebreakers for the SEC championship and
Correct.
the win-loss percentage of opponents, those are the people Alabama needs to win so that they can keep that tiebreaker over Georgia and still find a way to Atlanta. You also have Arkansas and Texas, that one going down in Austin tomorrow at 2:30 as well. Texas a little over a touchdown favorite there. I think we all expect Texas to take care of business there. But Arkansas, I do think, could certainly keep it within the number. And I know that was Brett Norsworthy's I Ain't Scared Bold prediction yesterday. And who are we to go against those right now?
Yeah, he's 9-4 on three-man front, and those are some bold predictions each and every Thursday, and he liked Arkansas inside that number against the Horns.
Yep. All right, two more games I wanted to get to quickly. So in the ACC, Pitt and Georgia Tech. I know Georgia Tech a 2.5-point favorite at home in this one. For me personally, this kind of feels like we talked about this with Alabama a little bit, and I know they've already lost once, but playing with fire a little bit this year. Probably should have lost to Wake Forest earlier in the year if it wasn't for some questionable officiating. A close call against BC last week. You lost to North Carolina State a couple of weeks ago. So it's been kind of up and down for a Georgia Tech team that's sitting here with a 9-1 record. And Pitt, I know they just got blown out by Notre Dame, but part of me, I kind of think Pitt's going to pull off the upset in this one. Pat, do you think Brent Key and the Yellow Jackets can get it done?
If they were playing at Pittsburgh, I think, yeah, that's a serious potential there for Pittsburgh. And remember, Narduzzi said the week of the Notre Dame game that he wasn't worried about the Notre Dame game because the Notre Dame game meant nothing, because it was the next game that meant everything, because it was an ACC game. So, yeah, I mean, Brent Key and those guys, they've looked disjointed over the course of the last few weeks in ACC play. So this is a big game for them, with Pittsburgh coming in 7-3, but Tech about a 2.5, 3-point favorite.
Yep. And then finally we have Tennessee and Florida, 6:30 on ABC tomorrow night. Tennessee 4.5-point favorite as it stands right now. But we know going down to Gainesville isn't easy, and the Swamp can make life difficult. So we'll see if Florida can play another one of those games like a Texas or a Georgia this year, where you just kind of look and go, all right, that's the Florida I was expecting to see this year. And more of that and less of the Florida we saw against Kentucky. But again, this is a game that, at least for optics, Pat, if you're an Alabama fan, probably want to see Tennessee get a victory in this one and stay in the top 25. It's not going to really matter in terms of the tiebreakers for Atlanta, but again, you just, as many ranked teams as you can have on your resume, it's only going to help.
Well, one thing's for sure, if Tennessee loses this game, they drop to 7-4, and you also have on your resume a loss to a 3-7 Florida team, which would probably take Tennessee out of the top 25, which would then hurt Alabama in regards to the college football playoff rankings, at least when you're looking at it on the peripheral in regards to the number of ranked teams that are currently in the top 25. And on top of that, you don't need Western Kentucky to go down to Baton Rouge. Western Kentucky's 8-2 on the season, And if LSU can't find offense and the defense decides to take the night off, and Western Kentucky pulls an upset over LSU, then that's going to ding Alabama's schedule again. So there's a lot of different things at play here, a lot of beauty contest type stuff in the SEC and around college football that could hurt Alabama if certain things happen.
Yeah, and you have to imagine if you're a Vanderbilt fan as well, you're hoping for Tennessee to get that victory because
Yes.
you are still trying to sneak into the playoff and having one more ranked win next week in rivalry week certainly might be what Vanderbilt needs with a little chaos ahead of them to sneak into the college football playoff and keep our dreams alive of Landrum getting his ear pierced. So that's a look at your slate of college football action coming up tomorrow. But we're overflowing with text 205-834-9450. Courtesy GMC text line is open. That's where we'll go next. Get your thoughts on Kalen DeBoer and the upcoming college football weekend. You're listening to JOX. Few more moments here on Morning Jocks, the Friday edition. Appreciate Pat Smith stepping in with me this morning. Damian Mitchell, little under the weather here today, so hopefully he gets to feeling better, and he will be back with us on Monday for a Reaction Monday and the beginning of Iron Bowl week. Obviously, one of our favorite weeks of the entire season right here at JOX. So we're going to get to your text here on the Courtesy GMC text line, close things out that way. But first, a reminder that tonight you do have 2 college football games going on. You have at 7 o'clock on ESPN an ACC battle, Florida State and NC State, a battle of 5-5 teams there in the ACC. Florida State a little under a touchdown favorite on the road in that one. And then coming up at 9:30 tonight over on FS1, Hawaii and UNLV. And Dan Mullen and UNLV a 2.5-point favorite in that one. So that's your college football slate for tonight. And without any further ado, let's get to your text now on the Courtesy GMC text line. Nick from North Birmingham, he chimes in. He has some score predictions for us here this morning. So we'll start off. He has Auburn 50, Mercer 7, Alabama 45, Eastern Illinois 10, Texas 27, Arkansas 24. He has Oklahoma beating Missouri 34-22. Oregon, laying the smackdown on USC 38-21. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate those texts this morning. Let's see. This text just says JMU. All right. Somebody pulling for James Madison this weekend. Let's see. Jeremy says, all of this crunching of numbers, this and that, trying to talk Alabama into the playoffs. Well, when Auburn beats Alabama, maybe y'all will finally shut up, crunch them numbers. Okay, well, yes, if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, Alabama's playoff hopes are non-existent. That is fair. Let's see. Bobby chimes in. He says he's a big LSU fan. Says, whether my Tigers actually pull it off and get Lane or not, I'm just happy that the big boys at LSU finally stepped up and landed us firmly in the discussion. Big improvement even with all the chaos over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, to say the least. Let's see. This text comes in and says, sneaky Kalen DeBoer, he's pulling a Jimmy Sexton pay bump move. We've certainly seen that one. Before. Casey, let's see, he chimes in. He says, Damian must not be the only one sick today because I'm still sick from the Alabama-Oklahoma game. I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that one here this week. Let's see. Michael says, be sure to ask those fans who want him gone, referring to Kalen DeBoer, who are they going to get? This seems like short-sighted stupidity. There will be plenty of time for people to come up with their list if any of these rumblings have any actual merit to them. Let's see. This one says, what if Lane Kiffin decides to go to Alabama? I think there was an opportunity for that a couple years ago, and that wasn't gonna be allowed to happen. And then Will says, how is big-time booster Pat Smith not involved in that meeting with Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter? That's a great question. That is a great question. But we have been told that meeting is taking place some point this morning. So hopefully at some point either on Mac and Cube or 3-Man Front, we'll have a big update for you on Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Thanks for tuning in this morning. We're back Monday at 6. Mac and Cube is up next.